This year marks the 155th anniversary of Mahatma Gandhi's birth. It also is a time when there are two raging conflicts in the world and there's adversarial politics in India. I'm joined today by diplomat, author, and former Rajya Sabha Member of Parliament, Mr. Pavan Varma. Mr. Varma, welcome to the News 9 Plus show. Tell us about the relevance of Mahatma Gandhi to the year 2024, when you're looking at conflicts in West Asia, in Europe, fighting one of its longest wars, and back home when you're seeing a kind of adversarial politics that you haven't seen in Indian politics. Why is Mahatma Gandhi relevant to the world today?
You see, Mahatma Gandhi will, in my view, never lose its relevance, whether in 2024 or 3024. Because, in a way, he was the greatest apostle of peace, non-violence, and ahimsa the world has seen in recent memory. So, his means to fight injustice or to fight for what is right were so revolutionary, backed by so much moral commitment and resolute conviction, that it has inspired freedom movements across the world, be it Martin Luther King or Nelson Mandela. So, his clarion call for a world which is more capable of living not only in peace but in peaceable coexistence is eternal. Yes, he would be a pained man today because we have the world seeing an unprecedented strife. The Russia-Ukraine war has claimed thousands of lives, loss of property. And what is unfortunate is that we are not looking at any light at the end of the tunnel because of the manner in which geopolitics are playing. Similarly, now we have the Israel-Palestinian conflict. I know that Gandhiji would have condemned the 7th October 2023 Hamas terrorist attack, in which hundreds of Israelis were killed, including civilians. 250 plus hostages were taken. At the same time, I'm sure Gandhiji would have realized then and now that the form of retaliation that Israel is implementing has crossed the line of any form of global civility. The pulverization of Gaza, the manifest intention of the fragile coalition, ultra right wing, and perhaps the most religious government in Israel, the manifest intention to annex the West Bank, now the expansion of the war against the Hezbollah into Lebanon, some estimates vary from 35,000 dead to 300,000 dead, thousands displaced, so many maimed and injured, women, children, elderly. So that is something that should make us think back to Gandhi. Now, on the second part of your question on India, we must remember that Gandhiji, I think, gave his life in a way for peaceful coexistence of different religious communities in India in a way that is threatened now because of this constant level of friction between Hindus and Muslims, which is playing out in a variety of ways and creating a divide, which I don't think is good for the country. How do we overcome this challenge? Once again, we hark back to Gandhi. We are also seeing a kind of development, economic development, where perhaps India has become the most economically unequal nation in the world, where 1% of the top crust owns an overwhelming magnitude of the country's wealth, while those at the bottom of the pyramid have hardly seen any growth in their incomes when compared to inflation, actually a decrease. So, this great gap between haves and have nots goes against the fundamental philosophy of Gandhi that development must be development with social justice. And thirdly, I think Gandhiji, for all his invincible and implacable convictions, strongly believed in a certain civility in public life, where there was self-restraint on the use of words and language, where there was the ability to listen to your opponents, where there was the scope for dialogue and conversation, where the polity had not become so brittle as to literally be either you are for me or you are against me. This is not the hallmark of a democracy. And today our political situation is such that there appears to be almost a complete breakdown of trust, negotiation, dialogue, conversation, constructive consultation within the political spectrum. So, Gandhiji would be both somewhat disappointed where India is, and at the same time, he will remain the constant inspiration for us to once again correct ourselves, course correction, and live up to the kind of dreams Gandhiji had for India.
So we also see a lot of Indian politicians borrowing from Gandhi's playbook, whether it's satyagraha or long marches. Long marches seem to be the flavor of the season, and he literally pioneered that. Do you see any relevance of Mahatma Gandhi in India's politics beyond just this symbolism?
See, the relevance, as I said, can never go, because Gandhiji attempted foundational change from the grassroots upwards. However, there is also a new syndrome in Indian politics of continuous and even emphatic lip service to Gandhiji and a betrayal from his values and ethics at the first opportune moment. It's the truth of our lives. In some senses, perhaps Gandhiji was too idealistic, and his own austerity was unemulatable, if there is such a word, for many of those in politics made of lesser timber. But I myself am part of a movement in Bihar called Jan Suraaj, where the icon is that of Mahatma Gandhi, where a colleague of mine, Mr. Prashant Kishor, has been for 2 years living in the village, walking 15 to 18 kilometers each day, meeting with people, and literally taking a vow not even to sit in a car. And he's covered 5,000 villages through the winter, through the monsoons, through the blistering heat of summer, in order to be, inspired by Mahatma Gandhi, but also subscribing to some of his values in terms of foundational change in the country's most backward and poor state, Bihar, which it was 30 years ago, and which, after the kind of politics we've seen in Bihar, it remains 30 years later. So change. How to bring that change? Peacefully and through creating social awareness. Because don't forget that Gandhiji's essential laboratory to start his methodology of passive yet tensile resistance to injustice began from Bihar, from Champaran.
Champaran, yes.
And this Padyatra has also started from Champaran. I quote this not because I am personally involved in it, but as an example of how Gandhiji can be relevant today.
So you have Rahul Gandhi, who's taken up the Padyatra route that Mahatma Gandhi pioneered. Of course, Prashant Kishor has
Yes,
done
I
it.
commend him for this Padyatra. But there is a difference between doing a Padyatra and meeting with people and doing a Padyatra where you stay like Gandhiji did for so long in Champaran until you see that the change you desire is happening on the ground. I think that is what Jan Suraaj is attempting in Bihar. So you have to put the ordinary citizen in the focus, kendra mein, of your endeavors. It needs a great deal of education. It needs a great investment in creating the awareness. It needs a great study of what exactly are the priorities of the common person. It needs even greater study of what are the best solutions to fulfill those priorities. For all of which, merely a yatra is not a solution. So therefore, now Prashant Kishor has been in the village walking non-stop for 2 years continuously.
In the
I
future,
personally have no doubt there is a great groundswell of support. Again, I give less credit to Prashant Kishor and more to Mahatma Gandhi. Because the entire venture and the icon of Jan Suraaj is Mahatma Gandhi, where you have, inspired by him, the resolve to invest heavily in change through methodologies that he used. So we have 1 crore registered supporters in Bihar now. Ordinary people who are willing to transcend the entrenched caste politics of Bihar, the politically manipulated religious divisions of Bihar, in order to bring about that foundational change in Bihar from the ground upwards, which has not been done. So, for instance, let me give you one example. The BJP, which has been in Bihar for very long, has 66 lakh registered voters. A movement that began 2 years ago has 1 crore registered voters. And as it so happens, on his birth anniversary, and I will be going to Patna this evening, we are launching the Jan Suraaj Party.
Let's talk about the man who Prashant Kishor once worked for a decade ago, and who's also a very voluble supporter of Mahatma Gandhi. In fact, a lot of Prime Minister Narendra Modi's initiatives borrow from Mahatma Gandhi's playbook, which is the Swachh Bharat initiative, for instance. What is the difference in the approach that Prime Minister Modi has taken and vis-a-vis the approach that the Jan Suraaj Party plans?
Well, I think Prime Minister Modi is well intentioned. And the Swachh Bharat campaign, if implemented more rigorously and backed by an institutional system by which it is enduring, in other words, the urban infrastructure, sewage disposal, garbage disposal. Sometimes I have a feeling that although well intentioned and in conformity with Mahatma Gandhi's ideals, it has often been symbolic without the rigorous institutional backing it needs. Because our urban infrastructure in particular is on the verge of collapse. The big cities or second and third tier cities. So, I think it was well intentioned. Some of his schemes are well intentioned. But there is one issue on which I think Mahatma Gandhi would have been a little disappointed with Prime Minister Modi, and that is the issue of the increasing levels of communal tension, where somehow there is a widening divide between the majority Hindu community and the minority, especially the largest minority, which are the Muslims. And certain aspects of that policy, such as the recourse to bulldozer justice, he would have done a satyagraha. Now this form of summary justice, which the Supreme Court has castigated, such practices, such explicit or implicit sanction to violence is not something that Mahatma Gandhi could have approved of.
Absolutely. In fact, sir, one can say that Mahatma Gandhi is one of the biggest brands, personal brands, to emerge out of India in possibly centuries. Now, you also dwelt on the universal appeal of Mahatma Gandhi's non-violence in your books. How relevant is Mahatma Gandhi's message in the world today? The Prime Minister has invoked his name in Ukraine while he was speaking with President Zelensky. He says that now is not the time for war. Do you see other countries paying heed to this, or is this just,
You see, that's a difficult question to answer. Let me first tell you, we carried out an intensive national survey. When I say we, I mean Jan Suraaj. Mahatma Gandhi, for the youth, is by far the most popular icon, followed by Dr. Ambedkar and others. So Gandhiji's popularity or respect for his sheer passion, conviction, personal and public morality, and his ability to take on the might of the most powerful empire to bring India its freedom has not waned. It may see more vocal critics, but by and large it has not waned. Nor has his message become less relevant to the world. Now, to what extent his message and inspiration can influence the flow of world politics, that has always been determined by immediate causes where the larger idealism has been subsumed by the cynicism and hypocrisy of short-term goals. And I'm afraid the world today needs to once again revisit Mahatma Gandhi in order to be able to build a globe with enduring peace, or at least better mechanisms to resolve conflict, including through dialogue.
So now is not the time for war, now is the time for Mahatma Gandhi. Would you agree with that?
Certainly, see, war is justified if there is a national and if there is an encroachment on your national interests. But war without the ultimate goal of peace is a purposeless exercise that borders on genocide. And terrorism is not the answer because it is a vicious cycle of violence creating violence. As Mahatma Gandhi says, if everybody follows the principle of an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth, if I'm not mistaken, the entire world will be blind. So that message is important, and it's not coincidental that even in the United States of America, where verifiably governments have openly and strongly backed Israel, there are huge protests against Israel's level of violence, retaliatory violence. In America, the population of Israel, I think a majority, would like the war to end. It is the peculiar politics within Israel where Prime Minister Netanyahu is in power with a slim majority at 64 out of 120 as part of a somewhat unstable 7-party ultra-right coalition where his own coalition partners don't want the war to stop. And Netanyahu, who is no dove himself, has no option except to continue with the war for his political survival. But ultimately, it is a tribute to Gandhiji that even in Israel, the people of Israel will revert to sanity because nobody wants the perpetual instability of war and the tragic consequences of it.
Mr. Varma, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.